Hello, welcome to the channel that aims to bring some light into games left in the dark. This is From the Void. So, after my last few videos, a lot of you guys expressed interest in a DLC dedicated list. And even though the stores are not closing anymore, which is certainly great news, I still see a lot of value in making a list of many of the best DLCs available on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. So, attending to your requests, I made this video which is intended to help you guys decide what DLCs to get for the PlayStation 3 and Vita. Now, there are many games with DLCs out there, so I'm only including it here if the DLC is meaningful, like providing a new part of the story or new challenges, and also new characters. Not just new outfits and things like that. There's gonna be one exception for that, you'll see later. I will be giving a brief description of what's in each DLC, including trophies, and I will be listing their prices as well as their size, so you can better plan according to your hard drive space. I will also let you know other platforms where you can grab these DLCs, if anywhere, so you can know all your options before making a decision. This is not me trying to make you buy all these DLCs. This is just a list of worthwhile add-ons on these systems that you may want to consider getting now or in the future, and I'm happy to help in your decision making any way I can, even if that decision ends up being not buying anything because you found out that the ones you want are also available on other platforms, for instance. Also, it's important to say, since we're talking about DLCs, that even though PlayStation 3 and Vita are region-free, DLCs are not. So if you have, say, an European physical version of a game, it will play just fine in any PlayStation 3. But if your account is North American, for instance, and you download the DLC, it will be North American as well and incompatible with the European physical copy. So keep that in mind when making your decisions. This video will also serve as a way for me to cover some games that I haven't yet in my other two lists. So enough said, let's get to the games. Let's start with Folklore. I would say this is a PlayStation 3 hidden gem, although it has been getting more attention lately. But for those of you who are not familiar, this is a rather unique game that embraces the surreal in its storyline, which can be hit or miss depending on your taste. But if you like that sort of thing, you'll most likely enjoy this game a lot because it has a strong focus on its story elements. Gameplay wise, the combat is straight up an action adventure style, and it's a really well done combat in my opinion, with a wide array of abilities to use that are tied to the unique mechanic of this game, the folks that you can absorb when defeating. When you do so, the folks become available for you to assign the ones you like the best to each of the face buttons to then use them in battle. This is a pretty cool game in my opinion, very underrated and underappreciated, and it has 8 DLCs. 2 of them are free, one of which will come with a new quest and costumes, and the other one has a new folk to add to your arsenal. And the other 6 are story-driven DLCs that expand on the game's narrative, so pretty important add-ons if you plan on playing this game. Each can be purchased for $3.99 or every 2 of them for $5.99 for a $6 discount if you get them all. They'll take each roughly 70 megabytes of space, and this is one of the rare PlayStation 3 titles that don't have any trophies to get, so the DLC also doesn't have any. This game is 100% exclusive to the PlayStation 3. Now the DLC for this next one is crazy, talking about Wipeout 2048. This is DLC only in price, because what this one does is bring another entire game from the Wipeout franchise along with its own expansion to the Wipeout 2048 resolution and frame rate to be played on the Vita. And to my understanding, at least in terms of frame rate, this DLC port hybrid is actually superior than the original version of this game. So by getting this DLC, you will gain access to all content available in the PlayStation 3 title Wipeout HD and its own expansion called Wipeout HD Fury. Each can be bought separately for $7.99 or bundled with a discount for $12.99. And most agreed that the HD Fury is a better game than 2048, so this is a great deal for Wipeout fans. By the way, this could have easily been included in my previous lists because Wipeout HD Fury is only available on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita, and the physical PlayStation 3 copy is European only, going for around $70 plus a possibly expensive shipping depending on where you are. Next up, Enslaved Odyssey to the West. This is a great action-adventure game from this generation that brings a really cool take on the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West. The characters are very interesting, the gameplay is solid, and the graphics are outstanding for its time. This truly deserved a sequel actually, but at least it got a great DLC called Pixie's Perfect 10. Now, this DLC is not more of what you got in the main campaign. It's a completely different take. For starters, you control Pixie instead of Monkey, and he plays completely different. You will be relying on his sniper rifle, a few gadgets, and mainly on stealth. We all know that stealth in video games can be a risky move, but this DLC actually does it really well. It provides some really balanced and clever challenges, and the stealth feels necessary since Pixie is not a fighter. Another very positive thing about this DLC is that it really doesn't expect you to remember how to play the game. You can go in fresh and learn as you go. The story in this DLC is great, by the way. This is probably one of the best DLCs in this list, and it's not expensive at $4.99. It will take 1.4 GB on your hard drive and provides 10 new trophies to get. This is also available on the Xbox 360 or Steam, where it comes bundled with the full game. Next up is a very hidden gem on the Vita, Escape Plan. I'm happy I get to cover this one now. I only didn't before because it is also available on the PlayStation 4, so it didn't really fit the other videos. This is a very interesting side-scroller puzzle game with cool art style and animations to it too. The objective here is to clear the character's way so that all sorts of traps won't kill them brutally. You can ask your guide to stop or walk, which makes this a bit similar to the more recent Mario vs Donkey Kong games. This game uses a lot of the Vita touch stuff in a very positive way in my opinion. And also, every time you die, your guy's number increases, which serves as an incentive to trying a perfect playthrough. This is a pretty neat little game that very few people know about, another victim of Sony's poor advertising efforts I think. And it also has 3 meaningful DLCs, the Director's Cut, the Asylum, and the Underground packs. Each introduces new levels to play and 4 new trophies to get, so if you like the starter game, the DLCs will also feel welcome. As I said, Escape Plan is also on the PlayStation 4, but I think this is a much better fit for the Vita. Now, Fist of the North Star, Ken's Rage 1 and 2. Either turn up or down your volume now. These are Dynasty Warrior Musou type of games, so you know what you will be getting here. And among these types of games, these are solid titles. Not only because this style of game really fits the Fist of the North Star franchise, but also introduces new mechanics like the throw moves, and it provides a lot of content if you're into this type of game. And even more so if you decide to go for the massive amount of DLC available. On Ken's Rage 1, there are 7 DLCs total. The first 2 are just costumes, but packs 3 to 7 all include new missions, and packs 4 and 5 include 1 new character each. You can check each DLC see size and details on screen now. None of these include new trophies though. Now as for Ken's Rage 2, there's a truckload of add-ons, most of which are new costumes, but there are 10 new missions for 99 cents each, or every 5 for $3.99, and also 3 new extra characters for $17.99 bundled or $7.99 each. You can check the details on each DLC on screen. Everything on this entry is also available on the Xbox 360. Next, Infamous 2 Festival of Blood. This is barely even a DLC. It's a completely standalone game, doesn't even require a copy of Infamous 2, but of course it uses the same engine of this game. It doesn't follow the mainline story at all, it's rather a fictional story as told by Zeke. It's pretty weird actually, but kinda cool. The gameplay is the best part and it's as good as it was in Infamous 2, so if you like that, you'll most likely enjoy Festival of Blood as well. By the way, even though this comes with the Infamous Collection, which is a re-release of the series' first 2 titles, it's in voucher form, and I'm pretty sure that they are all expired by this point, so that's no good. But you can grab this on the PlayStation Store digitally for $4.99. It will take 3 GB of space on your hard drive and will come with 14 trophies to collect. You can also opt to download the Infamous Collection for $14.99 for Infamous 1, 2 and Festival of Blood. This is not available anywhere except the PlayStation 3. This one is a must-have DLC if you plan on or already have purchased this game, Asura's Wrath. First of all, this is a freaking awesome game. You control the angriest main character in all of video games, so just for that it's worth a buy in my opinion. If you don't know much about this, it's a very cinematic experience filled with interactive cutscenes, and the gameplay is a very violent hack and slash type with cool boss encounters. Now as for the DLC, it is a must-have because it tells the final 4 episodes in this game and also includes 8 new trophies to get. The DLCs can be bought separately for $1.99 each or bundled together for $6.99 with a $2 discount. It will take up 1.65 GB on your hard drive. This game as well as its DLC are also available on the Xbox 360 and are forward compatible to the Xbox One and Series. Next up is DariusBurst Chronicle Saviours. This is a side-scroller shooter available on the Vita with a ton of content for fans of this genre. It is a very satisfying shooter with the very cool aquatic animal-looking robots to destroy, which is a staple of the series. If you like this type of game, this can keep your hands full for a long time. The drawback is that this is a very expensive game. It costs $40 digital on the PlayStation Vita and $60 for the PlayStation 4 version. There are limited run physical copies going for even more expensive prices. And the DLCs are also very expensive at $4.99 each, all of them introducing a new spaceship to use, and each coming with a set of new levels. They're pretty cool actually, many of them are from famous shooter franchises, such as Space Harrier and Fantasy Zone, but a hard sell at these prices. There is a total of 15 new spaceships to unlock via DLC, and not even a bundle with a discount for all of them. So if you want them all, you will be spending crazy $75 on DLC alone. So this is just for the die-hard shooter fans or Darius fans out there. This same version of the game can be found in PlayStation 4 or Steam. Next is Heavy Rain. This is a rather well-known game, and even though it presents some weird controls and the gameplay is not its strong suit at all, it has gotten some high praise from critics and gamers alike for the narrative and truly consequential choices it gives to the player, and it has a prequel DLC exclusive to the PlayStation 3. The rest of the game is available on Steam and PlayStation 4 with sharper graphics even, but the DLC is only on PlayStation 3, very weird actually. This add-on is rather short however, lasting around 1.5 hours at the most, but it's also not very expensive at $4.99, occupying 906 megabytes of space. It doesn't include any new trophies to get. If you really enjoyed Heavy Rain, this DLC is one to consider. Next up is the Castlevania Lords of Shadow series. Let's start with the first one. I know that old-time Castlevania fans were really hard on this one back in the day, but if you give it a chance, it is an awesome action-adventure game with a lot to offer. I think that the main problem was that the first Lords of Shadow game had a very slow beginning. It takes like 4 or 5 hours for both the gameplay as well as the story to start picking up. But once they do, it really gets better and better and better, to the point where it turns into a great game in my opinion. Another criticism I hear a lot for the first Lords of Shadow is in regards to the ending, and while I can see why a lot of people didn't like it, I also think it's a matter of taste and expectations, and regardless of that, the DLCs named Reverie and Resurrection provide a continuation, an epilogue, that really wrapped things up in a much more satisfying way in my opinion. It's a real shame that a lot of people never played them because they were DLCs and that's how it goes. A lot of people just skip on DLCs. But you still have a chance to play them on your PlayStation 3 for $9.99 each. A bit expensive, I agree, but I really enjoyed them, so I really had no regrets. As for the Lords of Shadow 2, again, in terms of combat gameplay, this is another solid title. It has more serious problems though, like the infamous stealth sections and the fact that it's kind of open worldish, which feels kind of unnecessary, but the combat can compensate for all those things, so this is still a positive game in my opinion, and the DLC improves it for sure. It's a prequel to the events of Lords of Shadow 2. It removes the stealth sections completely, the story is not convoluted at all, and the gameplay is again very strong in the DLC. It's cheaper too at $7.99 and there's only one. It will take 1 GB of space on your hard drive. All of these DLCs are available on the Xbox 360 as well. Another very hidden gem that I want to bring to your attention is Tears to Tiara 2, Heir of the Overlord. Yeah, I know, almost no one has ever heard of this. And the reason for that may be because the predecessor, which never came to the West, was an adult-oriented game, if you know what I mean. But this one has none of that, which allows it to shine with its own gameplay qualities, such as its solid strategy RPG mechanics and a satisfying story that highlights each character's personality, which are actually surprisingly complex. This is a good entry for fans of this genre for sure. Only real problem is its own reputation because of the previous game, and maybe the graphics are a bit outdated for its time too, but I didn't mind that. And this game has add-ons in the form of several extra characters to add to your army, and since this is a tactical RPG, new characters are a welcome addition, so if you're interested, you may want to consider getting all 6 of them for $1.99 each, except one of them that also comes with a weapon set and it's priced at $2.99. They are all very light DLCs and don't introduce new trophies to this game. Tears to Tiara 2 is exclusive to the PlayStation 3 by the way, so this could have made my previous lists easily too, since the physicals are going up in price, so consider this one covered from that perspective as well. Next up is Metal Gear Rising: Revengence. Which is a pretty damn awesome game, and it has 2 very meaningful DLCs that provide a welcome continuation to the spectacle that is this game, and impressively, they are both free. They are not standalone though, you'll need to have a copy of Rising to play them, but I would go ahead and download them anyway, at least to have them in your download list to be able to play them on your PlayStation 3 if you ever want later. There is the Jetstream Sam DLC and the Bladewolf DLC, both allowing you to play as their titular characters, and both are great DLCs I must say. There is also another meaningful add-on for Rising called VR Missions that introduces 30 new missions to tackle as Raiden, but this one will cost you $2.99, and here are the digital spaces required and all the trophies that come with all these DLCs. You can also have access to them in the Xbox 360, Steam, or even Shield Android TV. Next is Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. is a fighting game with the characters from Persona 4 and has a deep story mode which is much appreciated because it connects to the story of Persona 4. So pretty important for fans of that game. And on top of that, this is an absolutely solid fighting game. It is balanced, fun, stylish, easy to learn, and with a lot of depth to its gameplay. And there is a ton of DLC to get, most of which are not very meaningful, but 4 of them are. You can find 3 new characters to unlock, each for $4.99, and each introducing extra trophies to get, 10 in total, and you can also unlock the entire story mode from Persona 4 Arena, the predecessor to this game, for $9.99. All of this is also available on the Xbox 360 as well. Next, Portal 2. This is absolutely a masterpiece of a game. If you like puzzle games in the slightest, this is a must-play in my opinion. It has some of the best puzzle challenges ever and a very interesting and sometimes very humorous story and characters to top it off. Awesome game right here. And there are 2 DLCs for this one. Peer Review is free and expands the co-op multiplayer campaign, which is pretty cool by the way. It takes 1.3 gigabytes of space. And the other one is called In Motion and is for those of you who have the Move controllers. This one brings an entirely new campaign to play. It costs $9.99 and none of these will add new trophies to the game. The Peer Review DLC is available on Xbox 360 and Steam, while the In Motion DLC is only on Steam, but will require a setup that I believe that very few people will have. The Creative Sense 3D Depth and Gesture Camera, which I had never even heard about, to be frank. So since I really think that the PlayStation 3 Move controls are far more accessible, this PlayStation 3 DLC for Portal 2 is kind of a big deal. Next, another pretty important DLC for fans of this title, Prince of Persia. This is the 2008 game just called Prince of Persia that has its final chapter locked behind DLC. This was one of the best received Prince of Persia entries in modern time, so this DLC is a big deal since it finishes the story. Prince of Persia's Epilogue will cost you $9.99 and will take up a bit over 500 megabytes. It also introduces 10 new trophies. This is also available on the Xbox 360 and Steam. Next up is the only Batman game not available on PlayStation 4, Arkham Origins. Just to explain, Arkham Asylum and City also have meaningful DLCs, with great challenge packs in Asylum and even story and character DLCs in City. But both of these games received remastered versions for the PlayStation 4 that already include all the DLCs, so I'm going to concentrate this entry in Origins that was left out of that collection. This is a solid entry in the series, although not the best one, and it has one story DLC called Cold Heart and a bunch of other DLC packs with several bonus challenge maps, one of which is a PlayStation 3 exclusive called Nightfall, and it's a free DLC by the way. Some of these packs include new playable characters like Deathstroke and a bunch of new outfits too. They are cool additions if you like the main game, but the main DLC here is Cold Heart. You have access to a new thermal batsuit that is pretty cool, and the boss fight against Freeze is pretty challenging and satisfying. So for fans of the Batman games, this could be a good purchase. It also provides 12 new trophies to get. Cold Heart will go for $9.99 standalone and will take up 1.9 gigabytes in your hard drive. With the exception of the Nightfall pack, all other DLCs are available on Steam and Xbox 360. Now to fix an omission in my previous video. I already covered The Last Guy, but didn't mention that it also has a DLC. I'm sorry about that. This is such a fun game that any extras are welcome, and this DLC adds 3 new maps and 8 new trophies, so a lot more fun to be had in this amazing game. It's also not expensive at all at $1.99 and occupies only 67 megabytes. This was an instant grab for me, and I wanna thank viewer Kevlar Dog for pointing this out. As is with the main game, this DLC is only available in the PlayStation 3. Next up, one of the best horror shooter franchises ever, Dead Space. The first Dead Space doesn't really have any meaningful DLC, it's just a few enhancements to the weapons and armor to make the game easier. But Dead Space 2 and 3 have story-driven DLCs that are very worth it in my opinion. Severed takes place after the events of Dead Space 2. The challenge introduced is great, and it's plain and simple more Dead Space 2, which is always a great thing. It comes with 8 new trophies to get. Although Dead Space 2 is available on Steam, the DLC is not, so your only options are the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 for Severed. It goes for $6.99 and will take 1.6 GB on your hard drive. Or you can go for the game without the DLCs for $29.99, but the other DLCs are weapon packs and online maps, which I really don't think is worth it. It's important to mention that the Dead Space Extraction is also available to download via the PlayStation Store. This is not a DLC, however, although it came bundled with Dead Space 2 in the limited edition. This is rather the HD version of this Wii original game. This is an excellent on-rails shooter, by the way, and can be played with the normal or the Move controllers. As for Dead Space 3, this is very much the black sheep of the franchise. They went for human versus human combat, which is really not what Dead Space is all about, and pissed off a lot of fans to no end. It also has a lackluster story and quests that didn't need to exist, and I agree with all that, but the gameplay is absolutely solid if you can disregard the bad options that they made for the third entry in the series. And the DLC called Awakened only makes it better, and a lot better. The story is actually great in this, and the dreadful atmosphere from the previous games is back in full force on the DLC. This is what the entire Dead Space 3 should have been. I guess it's what the developers actually wanted to do too. So it's totally a great DLC to have. It goes for $9.99 and will occupy 1.2 GB of space. This one is available on Steam, differently from Severed, as well as on the Xbox 360. Next up, Drakengard 3. I already included this in my previous video, but I have a bit of extra information to add. There are 6 meaningful DLCs, one for each of the 6 intoners, and they flesh out the story that precedes the events of the main game. They are very important DLCs if you're into the story of this game. They go for $5.99 each, but what I didn't realize is that there is a bundle pack for all 6 scenarios called Sisters Prologue Bundle that will save you roughly $6, going for $29.99. I wanna thank Vagabear Gamer for pointing out this omission. It will take 2.4 GB of space, and like the main game, it's not available anywhere else but the PlayStation 3. Also, there is another add-on that some will deem very important, that is the Japanese voiceover DLC. That goes for $4.99 and will occupy crazy 9.8 GB of space. Next up, Final Fantasy XIII-2. This is such a weird entry in the franchise to me. I have such mixed feelings about this game. On one hand, the combat mechanics are some of the best in all of Final Fantasy for me. And on the other hand, I absolutely hated the two main characters, Sarah and Noel. And I couldn't get into the story and the time travel stuff at all. But in the end, it was more of a positive experience than a negative one, and I think that others can enjoy what I didn't in this game. And the DLC in this one is a very different beast. Other than a bunch of new weapons and outfits, we have access to new opponents to battle in the Colosseum for the prices you are seeing on the screen right now. And even more meaningful are the scenarios DLCs, one for Zaz, one for Snow, and one for Lightning. They tied the story of 13.2 to 13.1 and to Lightning Returns as well. And once you beat each scenario, you unlock that character to be used in battle. All of these DLCs come with the full game in the Steam version and are also available on the Xbox 360. And since we're in the topic of Final Fantasies, I just want to quickly mention here that Lightning Returns has also a bunch of DLC, most of which are just outfits for Lightning, but there is one for all the Japanese voiceovers. And there are people who really prefer the Japanese voices, so it's worth a mention. It goes for $3.99 and it's super heavy, will take up 4.7 GB of space. I don't know how that's possible, but it is what it is. Dante's Inferno is another slow burn action adventure game, much like the Castlevania Lords of Shadow actually, that gets so much better as it goes on. And it has a story DLC called Dark Forest that provides more of the best part of this game in my opinion, which are the challenging combat encounters. And this introduces new enemies too, which is a welcome addition. So if you're left wanting even more hacking and slashing with the sight and the cross, this could be a good add-on for you. It's only a bit lacking in the story and presentation department compared to the rest of the game. It goes for $4.99, so not super expensive, and takes 307 megabytes of space. This DLC is also available on the Xbox 360. Next up is Alice Madness Returns. This game has a free DLC that allows us to have access to the entire previous game in this franchise, called American McGee's Alice. Now, these two games share the same world and characters, but actually play very different, at least in terms of combat. While Madness Returns will have you focusing on an action-adventure type of battle, with the typical hacking, slashing, dodging, and using abilities, American McGee's Alice is a very methodical style of shooter game, where you have to keep your distance and defeat enemies from afar. It also looks way more dated than Madness Returns, which will probably be a turn-off to a lot of people, but I think it's important to mention this DLC here, since this game was only available previously for PCs in disc-ROM format, which is not something that most people are willing to get nowadays. Both games have their fair share of jankiness, but the sum of their parts result in pleasant gaming experiences in my opinion. As I said, American McGee's Alice DLC is free, but will require you to have a copy of Alice Madness Returns, either physical or digital. The DLC will add 6 new trophies to collect. This is also available on the Xbox 360 or PC through CD-ROM. Out of all the Tales games on the PlayStation 3, the only one with a more meaningful DLC is Tales of Zestiria. All the other Tales games also have a ton of DLCs, but it's mainly extra outfits and stuff to make your game easier. But Zestiria has a story DLC focused on Alicia and Rose that takes place after the events of the main game, but can be played independent from having finished Zestiria or not. So if you like Zestiria, this is a no-brainer. It comes with 6 extra trophies and occupies 208 megabytes on your hard drive. This will cost you $9.99. It's also available on Steam and PlayStation 4. Next, The Evil Within. This is an excellent horror survival game with great pacing and has some great combat design as well. If you're a fan of horror games, you'll likely enjoy this one too. And the DLCs are also high quality. 2 of them expand on the story from a different point of view, while the last one actually puts you in the shoes of the Keeper, one of the monsters in this game. And it's in first person, which is a bold choice. They're worthwhile experiences if you enjoyed the main game. The first 2 are The Assignment and The Consequence and go for $4.99 each, while The Executioner goes for $2.99. Here are the HD spaces they will require, as well as the trophies that come with them. You can also opt for the Season Pass that comes with all 3 story DLCs for $9.99. This is also available on Xbox 360, forward compatible, PlayStation 4 and Steam. This one I already covered in my previous video, but since it's one of the most important DLCs on this list, it had to be here too. Muramasa Rebirth. There are 4 amazing story chapters to purchase through DLC, each with their own new playable character, and this is exclusive to the PlayStation Vita. So I would suggest jumping on this one for sure, because it's a substantial DLC with a lot more awesome 2D action from Vanillaware right here. You can grab each one of them for $4.99, or all for $14.99, or even the game bundle with the DLC for $34.99. Each chapter comes with 6 extra trophies and will take up around 100 megabytes of space in your Vita memory card. Next up, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. This game is freaking awesome. This is the only racing game in more recent years that brought some real competition to Mario Kart in my opinion. It's so good. You may argue all you want about how absurd it is to have Sonic driving a car, and I agree, it feels very weird, but the gameplay here is top notch. Don't skip on this one if you're any kind of racing fan. And it has one DLC that introduces Metal Sonic as well as his unique transforming car and a new cars to race on. It costs $2.99 and doesn't include new trophies. Now, if you don't have this game and wish to download it, go for the bonus edition that includes the DLC for free. To find this, when searching on the store, it will be the one almost entirely in uppercase letters. The other one doesn't include the DLC. This add-on is also available on the Xbox 360, Steam, Wii U, and 3DS. Now, Arslan, the Warriors of Legend. This is another Musou or Dynasty Warriors type of game that takes the heroic legend of Arslan manga and anime series and adapts it very competently and faithfully into video game form. It's a fun game with a heavy focus on story and not super long, clocking in around 10 to 12 hours. But you can extend that if you are really into this game or its source material with a huge amount of extra scenario sets, 11 to be exact. The problem here is the price. The first two are $1.99 each and the rest can be acquired in bundles of 3 for $12 or $13.99. They do not introduce new trophies and won't take considerable space in your hard drive. This game is also available on PlayStation 4. Next is Sonic Adventure, or rather Sonic Adventure DX. Okay, Sonic Adventure was a Dreamcast original game from 1998. Almost 5 years later, in 2003, it was ported to the GameCube and PC as Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, which improved the graphics and added 60 new missions and the unlockable Metal Sonic. Then, another 7 years later, it was ported to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 with HD graphics, but locked all the extra content from the Director's Cut behind the DLC. It will cost you $2.99 and introduces 3 new trophies. It takes 0 space in your hard drive because this is just an unlock of content already in the game, kinda lame. This HD version is only found on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Last time I covered the spectacle fighting game Jojo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle, but I didn't mention that it has a bunch of DLCs, including 9 all-new characters to add to the roster of this game, as well as a second part of the campaign mode, which are both pretty big deals. Each character will cost you $1.99 and are not gonna take up too much space at all, while the campaign mode occupies 746 megabytes and it's free. All digital content for this game was removed from the European PlayStation Store for unknown reasons, however. So I am sorry if I got you interested and you have an European PlayStation Network account. This game is not available anywhere else other than PlayStation 3. This one I explained in my previous video, so I'll just reiterate how much of a great game this is, despite the very unusual proposition that it brings. Tokyo Jungle. This is an action survival game where you can control a huge number of different animals in their struggle to survive in a human-free world. And the DLC introduces 12 new animals, but no new trophies to collect, however. This goes for $6.99 for all animals, or every 4 of them for $2.49, or each one for 99 cents, your call. This game is not available anywhere except the PlayStation 3. And for last, I left one of the most interesting DLC packs on this list. We are talking about the DLC for Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. These are not very meaningful DLCs, and most of them are not even in the PlayStation Store. And this is actually one of the interesting things about them, but they're all free and pretty cool, so I decided to include them here. They made a bunch of extras for this game, but due to licensing issues they removed almost all of it from the PlayStation Store. You'll only find the database DLC to download for free. It's a cool Wikipedia of sorts with in-depth documentation including a timeline of the series, and this will take 77 megabytes of space. And even though they removed the rest from the stores, there's still a way to download the other DLCs, which are comprised of 25 new songs, 12 new patterns for the Octo Camo, and 12 new podcasts to listen to in-game. They'll take roughly 500 megabytes on your hard drive. If you're interested, I'll show you a quick tutorial of how to get this. In your PlayStation 3 dashboard, you go to Settings, then Network Settings, open it up, click OK, choose to manually set up your connection. Now select your type of connection, input your information until you get to the IP address, which you can select automatic. Then for the DNS setting, you want to select manual and input the numbers you're seeing on the screen now. Then MTU is automatic, proxy servers do not use, and UPnP enable. Then hit X and it will test your connection, which will fail, but that's okay as long as the IP address is successful. Then back out of this and open Metal Gear Solid 4. On the main menu, select Extras, then hit X, and there you go. You should now be seeing all the DLC options, which you will have to download one at a time. Afterwards, you can just reset your connection using the easy setup option without any issues. The credits for this workaround go to SaveMGO, who created the servers for this purpose. And that's it, that's all I got for you this time. Hope this was enjoyable, helpful, or entertaining to you. Let me know which DLCs you would have included that I didn't. Stay tuned to this channel for more coverage of lesser known games, including a future video I am planning on games from the Japanese PSN store that would be interesting even for non-Japanese speaking audiences. Thank you so much for subscribing and all that, and I'll see you soon.